Mr. Chairman, I'm present. This is Mark Squilla.
Welcome, Mark. How was that for an audio check, Michelle?
Sounds good, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chair, are we ready to move forward with Channel 64?
Has Councilman Johnson made
No, not yet.
anybody?
Haven't gotten in contact with Councilman Johnson yet.
Because he is the sponsor of the only bill that we're going to be hearing today, because one of them is being held.
Okay.
I'd like to give him an opportunity to have an opening statement with his bill. I think, is there anybody on this call from his office? And if they are,
Yeah, Councilman Heaton, I do see Councilman Johnson on the list of attendees that are logged in.
There you go. Okay. Councilman Johnson's in. How did that sound, Michelle?
Sounds good, thank you.
it looks like we're ready, Modesto.
Sounds great, Mr. Chair. I will contact 64. Give me 1 moment.
And to all the members of the committee, thank you for your patience, for being so late on a Tuesday afternoon. Busy week.
Council members and participants, we are now live.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Committee of Public Property and Public Works for today, Monday, November 30th, 2020. I understand that state law currently requires that the following announcement be made at the beginning of every remote public hearing as follows. Due to the current public health emergency, City Council committees are currently meeting remotely. We are using Microsoft Teams to make these remote hearings possible. Instructions for how the public may view and offer public testimony at public hearings of council committees are included in the public hearing notices that are published in the Daily News, Inquirer, and Legal Intelligencer prior to the hearings, and can also be found on phlcouncil.com. Will the clerk please call the roll to take attendance? Members that are in attendance, please indicate that they are present when their names are called. Also, please say a few brief words when responding so your image will be displayed on the screen when you speak. Our clerk for today is Mr. Brazel. Mr. Brazel, would you please read the roll?
Councilmember Bobby Heenan.
Present.
Councilmember Mark Squilla.
Present.
Councilmember Jamie Gauthier.
Present.
Councilmember Helen Gim.
Present.
Councilmember David O.
Present.
Councilmember Alan Dom.
Present.
And Councilmember Curtis Jones.
Thank you. A quorum of the committees is present, and this hearing is now called to order. This is a public hearing of the Committee of Public Property and Public Works regarding Bill number 200619. Before we begin, I want to announce that Bill number 200662 will be held. Please let the record reflect that Bill number 200662 is held at the request of the sponsor and will be heard at a later date. Clerk, would you please read the title of the bill?
Bill 200619, authorizing the Chief Executive Officer of Philadelphia International Airport, the Director of Commerce, the Commissioner of Public Property, the Streets Commissioner, and the Water Commissioner, or any or all of them, on behalf of the City of Philadelphia, to enter into a non-exclusive license agreement with the owner of 6900 Essington Avenue, 6902 Essington Avenue, and 6904 Essington Avenue, to allow for the continued use of a utility corridor and related improvements through property owned by the City of Philadelphia, bounded approximately by the southern boundary of 6900 Essington Avenue and continuing to the northern boundary of the Fort Mifflin Terminal Complex on Hog Island Road in Philadelphia and Delaware counties, all under certain terms and conditions.
Thank you, Clerk. Before we begin to hear testimony from witnesses we have for today, everyone who has been invited to the meeting to testify should be aware that this is a public hearing and this hearing is being recorded. Because the hearing is public, participants and viewers have no reasonable expectation of privacy. By continuing to be in the meeting, you are consenting to being recorded. Additionally, prior to being recognized, recognizing members for questions or comments they have for any witnesses, I will note for the record that at this time, they will use the chat feature available in Microsoft Teams to allow members to signify that they wish to be recognized. In order to comply with the Sunshine Act, the chat feature must only be used for this purpose. Before we call the panel for bill number 200619, the chair would like to recognize the bill's sponsor, Council Member Johnson.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I don't really have any major comments regarding this particular bill, and so that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Council Member. Clerk, would you please read the panel?
James Tyrell.
Good afternoon, Mr. Tyrell. You are connected and ready to proceed with your testimony. Please state your name for the record and then begin.
James Tyrell, Chief Revenue Officer of Philadelphia International Airport. Good afternoon, Chairman Heenan and members of the Public Property and Public Works Committee. My name is Jim Tyrell, Chief Revenue Officer for Philadelphia International Airport, and I appear before you today to testify in support of Bill number 200619. As you know, Philadelphia International Airport is owned and operated by the City of Philadelphia. The airport operates without local tax dollars and relies primarily on fees paid by airlines, along with revenues generated from other business activities located at the airport, to pay all of the associated costs with the operations of the airport. One of those other sources of airport revenues is license fees paid by owners of pipelines that cross airport property. Bill number 200619 would authorize the city and Philadelphia Energy Solutions Refining and Marketing LLC, which is owned by Hilco Redevelopment Partners, to enter into a license agreement with respect to the pipeline owned by Hilco. The pipeline, which has been in operation for decades, carries gasoline and diesel fuel from the property near the airport formerly operated as a refinery to nearby Fort Mifflin Terminal Complex, a tank farm, on Hog Island Road beside the Delaware River. Between the refinery property and the tank farm, the pipeline traverses city property managed by the Water Department, Streets Department, and the airport. Executives of the city's Water and Streets Department and the Public Property Commissioner have expressed their support of this bill. The pipeline had been previously licensed under a City Council approved 1997 agreement between the city and Sun Company, Inc., which formerly owned the Hilco refinery property. Because that agreement no longer applies to this pipeline, Hilco and the city have recognized that a new agreement is needed. In June of 2020, a letter from the city's managing director to Jeremy Gray, executive vice president of Hilco Redevelopment Partners, the city committed to working with Hilco on a license agreement for this pipeline, known as the Laurel Feeder. The airport, the Water and Streets Department, the Public Property Commissioner, and Hilco support this bill authorizing a license agreement between the city and Hilco, similar in form to the agreement attached to the June 2020 letter. Key terms of the new agreement called out in the bill include the agreement not obligating the city to spend money, making it possible for the term of the agreement to exceed the 4-year limitation consistent with the city's Home Rule Charter, Section 8-2003. Consistent with that provision, a term for the new agreement of up to 50 years is called out. Another key term in the bill is that the agreement will provide for a license fee determined by an appraisal. I greatly appreciate the opportunities to speak to you today in support of Bill number 200619 and respectfully request that the rules be suspended to allow for first reading at the next council session. I am available to answer any questions you may have at this time. Thank you, Chairman Heenan.
Mr. Chairman?
Tyrone. Chair recognizes Councilman Johnson.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman. First and foremost, I want to thank Mr. Jim Tyrell and his team for their hard work and their dedication in working with Hillco around this bill, and want to ask for my colleagues' affirmative support. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Councilman. Is there anyone else here who wishes to testify on Bill number 200619? Anyone on the committee have any questions for Mr. Terrell on this bill? We have a question from Councilmember Dom. You are now recognized.
Thank you, Chairman Heenan, and thank you, Mr. Terrell. Just have a couple quick questions. Basically, what we're doing is we're leasing the space in between the refinery and where the final destination is going to, correct?
That is correct, Council Member. It is a right-of-way between those two destinations.
And that's determined, the value of that is determined by an appraiser?
Absolutely.
And in the past, what's been the dollars involved?
It's been a per square foot charge that has been determined by fair market value appraisals. The last one has not been done for several years.
And if we can't come to an agreement, what's the alternative way to transport it?
Typically, the process we employ is to have an appraisal done. If there is some objection to the value, then the lessee or licensee can have another appraisal done. If they fall within 10% of each other, we usually agree to split the difference. If they fall outside of that range, a third appraiser is mutually identified, and then a new and review appraisal will be conducted.
Are there other leases like this throughout the city?
Several. The airport has several. I'm not sure about other city departments.
Right. So there are comparables that the appraiser can use. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council Member. Any other members on the committee have any questions for Mr. Tyrell? Is there anyone else here from the public that have any questions that have joined us? Any questions for Mr. Tyrell? Mr. Terrell, I thank you for your time and your testimony.
I have a question.
Councilman Dunn, good.
Yeah, I don't know if I think I asked this, but I don't know if I got an answer. What do you think ballpark the dollar figure is going to be?
I don't recall what the recent appraised value have been, Council Member. It's been several years since we've had a right-of-way appraised.
And do we hire the appraiser? The city?
We do. The airport actually has an appraiser under contract who specializes in these types of projects.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Council Member. There being no further questions from members of the committee and no other witnesses to testify, I will ask if there's anyone else present in today's hearing whose name we have failed to call and that wishes to offer testimony on any of the bills that are being considered here today. All right, hearing none and seeing none, I want to thank all the panel. I want to thank you, Mr. Tyrell, for your testimony here for today and for your participation. We value your input. I now invite all panelists and witnesses to please disconnect from the meeting before we go into our public meeting. We will now pause for the proceedings briefly as multiple participants may have to leave the hearing. This concludes the public property or the public hearing of the committee. We will now go into our public meeting to consider the action to be taken on the bill that is before this committee here today. Clerk, would you please call the roll.
Councilmember Bobby Heenan,
Present.
Councilmember Mark Squilla,
Present.
Councilmember Jamie Gauthier,
Present.
Councilmember Helen Gim,
Present.
Councilmember David O,
Present.
Councilmember Alan Dom,
Present.
and Councilmember Curtis Jones.
I want to thank you all. We will now go into our public meeting. The chair recognizes Councilmember Squilla for a motion on bill number 200619.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that bill number 200619 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended to permit the first reading of this bill at the next session of council. Is there a second?
We get a second?
Second.
Okay, let the record reflect that Councilmember Gauthier has seconded the motion. It has been moved and properly seconded that bill number 200619 be reported from this committee with a favorable recommendation, and further move that the rules of council be suspended as to permit the reading of this bill at our next session of council. All those in favor signify on the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? The ayes have it, and the motion carries. This concludes our Public Property and Public Works Committee hearing. I want to thank you all for your hard work today. And being that there are no additional remarks, this committee hearing is concluded. Thank you all for your attendance today, and have a blessed day.